Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it isn't
a thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Today, on the back of spending almost 6 hours podcasting yesterday, I've got another interview. So, Mitch Blake, welcome to the dungeon.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited. I've been chasing you for a while. So, it's one of these ones I've been like, I really want to get Mitch in here and get to expose Mitch for, the absolute legend that he is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about legend. I reckon I might have a little bit of value to give to some of your listeners, particularly because I think your content is it's for people that are starting out in the industry, I guess. You obviously have people that have been in the industry for quite some time listening, but I think your content seems to be geared towards those that are starting in the business.
So, yeah, look, I try and dumb it down. You could say it's Lawncare for dummies kind of approach in terms of trying to make sure it's easy for people to digest. And that works for people who have been in the industry for ages as well. But, yeah, people who are just starting up, like you've been 3 years in now?
2.5.
2.5 years in the industry?
Yeah.
Right. So when you first start a business, and a lawn care business is the best example to look at because people just come in with absolutely no idea what they're doing at all. They make assumptions.
Case in point, yeah.
They try things and get things wrong. And if you're lucky enough to start with somebody like Jim Penman holding your hand or Joel Kleber or one of those guys that's in the Jim's franchise, they give you some tips and tricks as to what to do to get started. But even then, if you've got a bad franchisor, it can be a real struggle street. I've talked to so many guys from Jim's or Fox or VIP that really struggle, or they leave one franchise and join another. Right? If you've got
I
good
think
support,
there is a little bit of hop, skip, and jump between a few. We don't have anyone in our region that's done that, but I have heard that it does happen.
Yeah, but the point I'm making there is that when you've got good support, you implement systems straight away. Now, this has taken a deep dive down a rabbit hole I was going to leave for the end, but let's do it. Right? When somebody says, I want to start a lawn care business, what's the first thing they think of?
First thing they think of, so you're saying that they would firstly think of Jim's mowing?
Well, that's great. That's a great point.
Yeah, potentially what they might think of. But what they're thinking of...
The first thing I think
of is the labour of doing it. That's what I find. The Jim's mowing, everyone knows it. I knew it as a kid, grew up knowing the brand. But, people I find are thinking about the doing of the work. They're not thinking about that it's a business. They're not thinking about how they're going to set things up. They're not thinking about, they're going from a job where they've got a boss they don't like, and they're going to an industry where they'll have 60 to 80 regular customers, meaning they've got 60 to 80 little bosses.
Well, so if we break it down to really simple things, they're thinking about procedures, but they wouldn't even think of it as procedures. They are thinking about freedom. Right? I'm not beholden to a boss. I've got the freedom to do what I want. I've got the freedom to work as much or as little as I want. I get to choose who I work with. I get to choose what tools I'm working with. I've got freedom, right? Now, once you've actually been in business for 2.5 years like you don't actually have freedom. You are still a slave to something. But initially, you call it freedom. It's this vision that you have of going, I get to make all of these choices. So the point that this comes back to is you have to create systems around everything you do. The choices you make become a system. And so the very first choice somebody is going to make is, what type of customers do I want? Where do I find customers? What type of equipment do I want? How many hours do I want to work? And then you start getting into some of the more critical standard operating procedures in terms of what's my quality level, how's my customer service, all these different things. Now, when you joined Jim's, they had a script for absolutely every one of those things. Sorry, Mitch, you're not welcome in the Gyms Network if you don't comply with some of those scripts. Right? And that's one of the key things that makes gyms really attractive, but it's also something that helps to filter out people joining up who are not going to be good cut for working in this sort of business. And so I guess that's going to the heart of why I do the podcast. It's talking about those systems. You know, I could be accused of stealing some of them from gyms even, but the point I'm making is independent guys and people like yourself in gyms get to hear me and everyone I interview talking about what are those systems that work really well in your business.
Yeah, so obviously we had a conversation yesterday on the phone it probably went for around an hour, and you could have filmed that and touched on systems, because I hear, you know, on some of your interviews and interviews that Joel does as well, and I did one that was released this morning with Deshaun. The question that you hear a lot is like, what are the systems? And the nature of the systems, you think of structure, rigid, black and white systems. So we think of things like our pay for work guarantee. So that's a system that we pay for our leads. That's a system. The way that we bring people into the business. So you just touched on that there as well. So I think for me, it's going to be different region to region, division to division in Gym Group. But for me, it's about self-qualification for the person coming in. So you said that we might not be able to fit someone in like a square pole trying to fit into a round hole type thing. Let's let them do that for themselves, like work that out. So we'll have like an initial phone call, send out an information pack to them. They can jump on our YouTube channel, Facebook page, TikTok, whatever it is, listen to some interviews. Generally, people who, and they're not necessarily bad eggs, right? They could run a business successfully. They could be independent. They could land at, you mentioned other franchises there. But if they listen to all of our content and anything that comes up in that is a red flag to them and they don't come with us, that's great. That's great news for us. It's great news for them. We've saved, plenty of heartache. If they go through that, they do a day on the road with a franchisee, they go down to the training and do the 5 days training down in Melbourne, and they come out of that and they say, Mitch, like, this is something that I can do, then we've ticked all the boxes. That's a green flag. So that's a system there as well of self-qualification for someone coming into the system. But
so one of those things, I see this with independent guys, and this is why I think it's really important looking at the Gyms Network. The independent guys that I've seen have the approach that, and that word I used, freedom. This is mine. I'm in control. I choose how things work, right? And that's not a bad thing to do, but it means that often things like customer service go out the window. So, Mitch, I don't like the way you're looking at me. You're not my customer. Or, Mitch, you complained about the height that I cut the grass. You're not my customer. I've done that to somebody, right? This woman that right in the early days of my business, she kept on asking me to cut it lower. Like I cut it on a Honda HRU 216 down until it was like the second height adjuster level from the bottom. And she's like, cut it lower. And I'm like, I'm not going any lower. I've cut it lower than what it should be already. It's actually the problem that you're having is because the grass is cut so low and there's no grass left. It's just weeds growing. And she wouldn't listen. And, and I was like, because I'm not in the Gyms Network, I don't have to deal with her complaining. See you later. Right? Yeah. And this is a great thing as an independent, but also it's a differentiator between me and you. If you get a complaint, go back to 1300 Jim Cares, he comes knocking on your door and says, hey, we've got a complaint.
If we look at our statistics, we had a look last month, and over the last 6 years, Dan Cahill showed it to us on our franchisor meeting, like our complaint ratio, and it's getting better year to year, that percentage. So who knows whether we're allowed to release what our percentage is, but, maybe this is your scoop, mate. But it's around about like 1.2% is the complaint. And it's improving by these little minor, maybe it's 0.01% or 0.1% year on year. That's a really good complaint rate. We're talking, just over 1% of people. And the complaints typically that we do see in the business is that people aren't showing up on time. or they aren't calling them back once a lead comes through. That's the typical complaint. So like you're saying, that then goes through the head office. It'll come out to the franchisor. It'll go to Jim Penman as well. And then, we're calling the franchisee and I guess actioning upon that. And typically, so the complaints can be removed and taken away from a franchisee as long as the customer is happy and satisfied in the end. So it may be that they just didn't turn up on time and you're reminding that franchisee, hey mate, you're actually like 30 minutes late or an hour late, and this customer's just wondering where you were. And they just call the customer, say, yep, I'm actually just an hour behind today. They should probably contact the client and say that I am running behind, but you're running a business. You know what it's like out in the road. You've got 10, 12 hours to do for the day. They're falling behind and they're chasing their tail, potentially. That's the situation. And they call the client and say, look, I'll be there in an hour. No worries. We get a text message from the client saying, yep, I'm 100% satisfied today that franchisee's come back out and done that job. Then it's not really a complaint, is it?
Yeah, that's right. So that's a big difference, right?
You're saying as an independent that you wouldn't get that phone call or transparency, potentially.
You don't get the feedback. So keep in mind, independent guys, when they start up, they usually aim for 100% strike rate, right? So they're aiming for everybody I speak to, I get the quote, which often means they're quoting lower price than what a gyms might be quoting, but they're also hoping to wow the person with the fact that they're getting good results and that they're happy. But then when a customer's not happy, they can't call 1300 gym. They just don't answer the phone. They tell you to go away or whatever. They don't give you a reason even as an independent. You don't know. And so
there's a customer service guarantee, I think might be the name for it, that's in place for people that are with gyms. Yeah. And that's what it means to. So if a client was to call an independent person and they did a bad job, and I have not, so I've been in the role for 6 months and we've never had a complaint for a job done poorly.
Nice.
We have had them come through that, they're an hour late today. So that's typically what you would see. Nothing but let's say that the situation did arise that someone didn't do the job up to scratch. Then that franchisee would get the opportunity to go back out and rectify that. And I would like to think that they would probably go out there and do that. If they didn't, we have the ability to call on another gym to go back out there. Or let's say the client then is burnt and doesn't want that franchisee to come back out there. We would get another franchisee to go back out and do it. If we didn't have a franchisee in the area, we would get an independent to go back out and do that job. Okay. We would get it. It would be fixed. So that's an advantage there as well. Like if Garry goes out and does your job, you're saying like, who do you call? Do you call Garry and tell him that you're unhappy with Garry? And Garry, can you organise someone else to come back out?
That's it. Yeah, the systems like that in place for you when you start with an independent guy. We will get probably a churn of less than 10%, like might not be down 1.2%, but a churn of 10%, that people that leave, they died, whatever, and you don't know why a lot of them leave, they just leave. So you try and find out, but a lot of the time, like if they're unhappy, they're not going to tell you why they're unhappy.
You don't send out any, so obviously you do a lot of commercial stuff now, but when you were doing residential, you didn't send out any sort of survey yourself, or?
No. So I would say I'm one of the independent guys that does take this fairly seriously, and a lot of independent guys will be left in that quandary of I don't really know why, and I don't want to know, right? I've taken it fairly seriously. So when I get new customers, where'd you find me? How'd you find me? And if you're leaving, can you tell me what is it something I've done wrong, or are you moving? What's the story? But a lot of guys won't even get that, and it's independent, so there's no standard as to what to do.
I'll tell you one thing that I did. So I like to follow up on my clients as well, regardless of whether gyms is following up on them. So me as a franchisee, been franchisor for 6 months. So first 2 years of my business as a franchisee, I would actually follow up on it. And I didn't do it all the time, right? I did it towards the end of just being a franchisee. I still am a franchisee. But as I was coming on to being franchisor, I was really honing in probably for about 4 or 5 months on my client base, and I wanted to know the numbers of conversion rates and things like that. And if I didn't convert someone and they told me that it was because I was too expensive, if I called them back 4 days later and asked them or text them and asked them had they found someone to do their service and would they still be interested in me coming out to do their lawns, 10% would say yes. That's a good number. So converting, and it's only for the time of follow-up. So I know you've got a lot of independents listening. You really do need to follow up with your clients. You do need to send a follow-up text message. You need to find out why they said no. So we had a new franchisee start here, and I had a lead come in for hedging. And I didn't have time to do it. I knew the hedge, and he went out to quote it. This is his first job. And went out to quote the job. I think he quoted about 380 off the top of my head from memory. And he's quoted to do the hedging, green waste removal, travel to the tip fee, come back. And they rejected the quote, and he said, I must be done. The quotes, they've rejected the quote, they've told me I'm too expensive and I probably shouldn't negotiate on price. And I said, well, why not? Why can't you negotiate on price? You've started a business, you've got nothing else to do. You're going to hit me up at the end of the week and say, here's my pay for work guarantee. I want you out there actually earning real money and doing jobs and building your skill. So I said, well, instead of lowering the price of that service, let's change the service. So I don't know if you've got them there, but we have the green waste bins here, like the council clean ones. So I said to him, there's probably going to be a little bit more than what you could put in the green waste bin. You've quoted for travel and tip fees. Let's remove the travel and the tip fees. Let her know that we can hedge it, fill up the green waste bin, and then anything that's left over, we'll put into a nice little neat pile. We'll put it into a waste bag. And then in a fortnight when that bin's empty, she can fill up her bin again with the waste that didn't quite fit. And you'll be able to offer the same quality of service, but you've just changed the scope a little bit to win that job.
Yeah.
He won it. He did the job. It all fit in the green waste bin, and client was happy. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's, when, like I said, being independent versus being in gyms, there's a lot of variables there where people can learn from my podcast or Luke's podcast or different platforms like that. Being included in a Facebook group, it certainly makes a big difference these days. But when you join a gyms, straight off the bat, you've got all of these systems put in place to make sure you are aware of what's expected of you as a business and as a franchise.
Yeah, I'll touch on more of the systems in a minute. I think when I met you down in LLEE, and
yes,
you said to me, I need someone to say this on the podcast.
Yeah.
How much you actually helped me with your podcast. So, yes, we've got the systems with gyms and stuff. Let's forget about that for a minute. But, it takes a village to raise a child. Same with the business. So you've just spoken about community there in business, and very anxious guy. I was struggling when I first started business, and I love listening to your stuff because you've got such a calm voice as well. Back then, there was Benny and BJ. If I was having a good day, I love to listen to Benny and BJ. Get a bit of a laugh, a bit of a kick out of my day. If I was feeling like, I just spoke about the analytics of my business, like working out conversion rates and things like that. Love to listen to Luke's stuff. But if I wanted hugs and belly rubs, I'd listen to your podcast and get a bit of comfort knowing that, because you're interviewing actual lawn mowing lawn mowing contractors. And a lot of them are in the same situation at the time or had just come from it. It gave me a lot of comfort.
It's quite relatable by doing that, yeah. Yeah,
so really, So I know you wanted me to, you didn't tell me to, but you said, I wish someone had said this on the podcast. So now that I'm on here, you did a wonderful job. Would I still be a lawn mowing contractor or franchisee if you didn't have a podcast? Maybe not. Who knows? So
I like to think I'm relatable because I talk about motorbikes all the time too, but apparently not everyone wants to listen to motorbike stuff.
No. We used to be on motorbikes as a kid. People complain about the kids on motorbikes these days, and
it's the e-scooters, isn't it?
Look, that was me when I was a kid. So we would fang around on the motorbikes through the middle of the town. Had the ranger would chase us and confiscate a bike, and you buy a thumbster off eBay back in the day and carry on with that. So, and I think now with the ban on social media for kids, you're probably going to see a bit more of it with kids back outside. So.
Talking about buying a thumbster off eBay, I bought a thumpster for my son, and the guy that was selling it needed a trailer, so my first lawn mowing trailer went to him in exchange for this thumpster.
There you go. So you no longer needed the trailer, but you're already in the industry and you upgraded, or?
Look, if you'd seen that trailer, you would have called me a cowboy, honestly. It needed to go, and the trailer that replaced it was way better.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's funny that most people start off as cowboys, and I don't think even as a mowing franchisee, we're not. We could be that cowboy. Who knows when we start out, because we're not polished and stuff. Like, we do obviously go through the training, and you mentioned systems and stuff. We have some stuff in place, and we generally are presentable. But maybe we are when we first start out. Everyone's learning in the industry, so it can take time to feel like you're a professional in the industry.
I think I came across as professional right from the very first day that I started. Always made sure I had a presentable uniform and looked decent, did a good job, made sure their yard looked excellent. But my trailer and my vehicle didn't have signage, and it looked very cowboyish. And that's a big part of that picture that's just let me down, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that you do need that. Like, we know that if we put a new trailer in an area, we get work. Will in Orange, he's about to start up, and he sent me a text message this morning. He's just bought the trailer home, and parked it out the front of his house, and someone walked up to him and said, "Didn't know that you were Jim's Mowing. Can I book in for a regular service with you?"
Straight up before he's even ready to go.
He hasn't signed a contract or anything yet, so picked up his first regular. Yeah, for an independent, maybe sign writing a trailer, because a lot of people might be getting into this part-time on the weekend, or maybe they make the leap into it full-time, and they may not have the capital behind them. If you can afford to do some signage on a trailer, or simply just a uniform or something like that, that will help you.
Yeah. And look, I'll flick it from cowboys to trolls for a minute. If you are one of those people that run around without signage and you're a bit of a troll on the internet, the claim I hear them making is, without a phone number and a sign on the trailer or the vehicle, I don't have people calling me and abusing me because of my driving. And I'm like, well, if you're driving like that anyway, you kind of...
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything come back. Like, I've never had never heard of, in my 6 months' time as franchisor, I've never heard of a driving complaint.
Wow.
For a franchisee. But you're right. I am, particularly when I first started, I knew that I had this signed trailer, and I'd operated heavy equipment and stuff before, but I was very, very conscious that someone could contact me based on how I drive around the town. And they do cover it down at training too. They speak about that, and it put a bit of fear into me as well, that when I'm out there, like, I do have to drive and not cut off people. Look, I drive well anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You're in and if you are, I don't know, you call them a troll or something, but if you are an independent, and you're saying that's probably the wrong mindset. It's a community role that you're doing. You're out there. It's a service role. We're out there in the community, looking after people. Typically, we look after vulnerable people, and you can classify vulnerable as whatever you like, whether it be NDIS participants, the elderly, single mothers. People, like, we're being invited into their safe space in their home, and a bit of signage is probably not going to go astray, and looking professional. So before I started Jim's Mowing, I was working the mines 12 days on, 2 days off. And I had my son at home. He was under the age of 1. And we just moved to Dubbo, just moved into our house, and we hadn't got a lawnmower yet. I had a Victor when I lived up in Mount Isa. And I used to mow with this push, so not self-propelled, little 19-inch, I assume it was 19-inch or 18-inch Victor. I'd push mow 1,300 square metres in Mount Isa in 40-degree heats.
Yep.
Just seems silly. But we'd never engaged in a lawn mowing contractor before.
Yeah.
And before I'd moved to Dubbo, I was interested in business. I wanted Jim's Diggers. I had a bit of an affiliation with, like, heavy equipment and machinery and stuff.
Yeah.
And I looked at Townsville and I looked at Perth. We were looking for a place that we might want to live forever. But mum and dad are back down here in New South Wales, so we landed in Dubbo, and I could get a job here in the mining. So I knew when I was younger what Jim's Mowing was. I knew of the brand. I was following them on YouTube, Facebook, because I was considering business. But my wife said, like, when we moved down here, we need someone to mow the lawn because you've got to spend some time with your son. Said, you can get a mower in the future, but for now, like, get someone. And I went, I'm seeing these Jim's mowing trailers, like, bloody everywhere. And I just saw one the day before around the corner from our house. So I put an online inquiry in for Jim's mowing. And it went to Bizza. So I got a text message or something saying that there was no one available to service the area. And I went, no, are you kidding me, mate? I see them everywhere. They're just around the corner.
Yeah.
I now know that they would have had their leads turned off because they would have been too busy. It was probably around about March-ish, I think. And there was 4 guys in town, and they must have all had their leads off for this particular area.
Maybe.
And it went to an independent. And maybe like a day later, someone texted me and said, mate, I'm coming around to mow your lawn. And this week go back to like that wasn't professional. And I didn't realise what branding or a professional industry or face of an industry was. But the thought process in my head was, and this will sound terrible, I just didn't want someone coming and sniffing around my wife and son that I had no clue. And when I started looking into gyms, so I obviously rejected that guy. I went and bought a battery as a go 16-inch mower or something, and I've got 700 square metres here, and it was a nightmare. It was overgrown and it was wet. It's difficult to catch. But, for me, when I was thinking about coming on with gyms, I had to think about that conversation I had with myself and why did I think that way? Now, potentially if that guy didn't send me a message and just tell me he was coming around to mow my lawn, maybe if he called me and said that, I'll arrange a time with you to come and quote that, and, I'm Garry from the Aussie Lawn Stars, and I'll come around and quote what time you're available, mate, and come and meet me and shake my hand. It might have been a different story.
Hey, Mitch,
but just getting a text message saying I'm coming around to do your lawn, it didn't sit well with me.
Catch Pro has been a supporter of Aussie Lawn Stars since its very first episode. Since we've formed a partnership with Catch Pro, a lot of Aussie Lawn Stars have made orders using the code LawnStars10 in all caps. And the lucky Ray from Sydney won the Equipment Defender racks right before Christmas. I'm letting you know that all the support for the month of February will be going towards BJ's choice of charity, Queensland Children's Hospital.
So before it dropped out, we were talking about sort of that customer impression, and if you turn up with a trailer and vehicle that have got no sign writing on them, and then if you're comparing who do they call, like can they call Garry Ashton and complain about Garry Ashton?
Yeah, I would urge the independent people that are listening and starting their business out to consider having some sort of signage. Not necessarily on the trailer. Like I said, you've got to think about your return on investment. And if you're getting into it and you don't have that money to outlay, a uniform would probably be the bare minimum, I would think, with your phone number on it and potentially a logo.
Yeah, well, the amount of independents that have, and I said this before, but that have actually said, I don't want signage because I don't want people calling and abusing me when they see me driving and think that I'm a bad driver.
Yeah, that's ludicrous. Yeah.
There is a lot of people who that's their modus operandum is I don't want the signage because I don't want somebody harassing me when I'm on the road driving.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Not acceptable. Not that mindset, right?
I understand because I've been there, done that. Not that I was a bad driver necessarily, but I didn't have signage, and I'm like, I kind of like being incognito. But yeah, realistically, if you're trying to run a business, it's not a professional look.
Yeah, but what do you need to run your business? What's the first thing you need? So you've got yourself your trailer, your equipment, you've got yourself a uniform, and you're standing out the front of your house with nothing to do. You need a lead. You need a lead. So
Yep.
if you have your mobile number on the back of that trailer or on the side of it or something like that, people stopped in traffic or parked on the side of the road out the front of a job that you are doing, like I spoke about just a moment ago, parked out the front of your house, you will get work, and it will help you build your route density as well, which is really important. So you'll be getting calls from people that see you. If you've got a web page up, then you're going to get calls from, right, there's going to be a bit of a sprawl on that. If you're putting up ads and stuff on Facebook or Google, there'll be a sprawl as well. So independently, that signage is going to help you build your business where you want your business built. And, you're going to look professional as well. So I would go down that path. On the building route density and stuff, with Jim's mowing, you would know that we have territories and then our all areas. Yes. For people that aren't listening, like, you would get a non-exclusive territory where you have the first right of refusal for those leads that are coming in, but then you can also have like a larger all areas where you're taking where you're willing to take work from, and particularly when you start out, you're willing to travel 45 minutes. Some people are. I was. Now I travel 2 minutes. So, my little all areas is, within my home and my space, it builds route density. I can go out and do 15 mows in a day, be home by 2:00.
Yep.
I wouldn't be able to do that if I was traveling 45. So, I know, again, you've got like a lot of independent listeners. So if you've got that signage on your trailer, on your uniform, you're going to be getting it where you're working. So people will call you around your base.
Yeah. But I guess one of the reasons why people maintain that when they're independent is because when they've got enough customers to be busy, which, I mean, in our industry, it tends to happen regardless of where you are at. You can get enough customers to be busy. But when they've got enough customers to be busy, they're like, I don't want the signage because I don't want more business.
Yeah, can understand
Which
that.
It's a pretty poor mentality, though. And
no, I can understand it. You do need leads continually coming into the business because we're in a business that has a high attrition rate. Whether that be because of renters, people moving around more frequently nowadays as well.
Yeah.
There is an attrition rate to it, and you need to replace those customers. I guess for me, I've never had the worry about turning work off and then not having that customer serviced. So, like I said, if there is no one to service it, it'll go to Bizza. We're better off being able to provide that service than more likely to call gyms in the future. But for me, running my business as a franchisee, I knew that if I turned my lead off or turned particular services off as well, so I just wanted to focus on mowing and didn't want to do hedging or gutter cleaning, I could turn those services off. But I knew that those customers that were calling would still be satisfied. So another gym would pick them up. So I said non-exclusive territory, right? So that would mean that someone, if a gutter cleaning lead came in my territory, but I'm not down for that service, another franchisee would be able to pick that lead up and satisfy that customer, keeping him within our network, right? So when you're talking about the independent person that doesn't want to have the signage on their trailer, they do have to think about their attrition rate. But then you've also got to think about how do you increase your prices of your customers? You do it with supply and demand. So if you were to work out, say, time yourself, I know we're trying to work out an hourly rate, right? We time ourselves on our job and work out where our lowest paying customer is. And if we need to price rise them to keep ourselves in business, whether that be CPI related or something like that, we know that we can price rise them from the bottom because we've got signage on our trailer and we've got demand coming into our business. We can replace them if they were to move on and not accept that price rise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as an independent, when you don't have signage, you're essentially turning half of your funnel off, but not necessarily the right half. So if you look, use the lingo of talking about a funnel where your jobs come from, right? If you have a massive big funnel, you can afford to turn off bits and pieces of that funnel. Like you're saying, you could afford to say, all right, I don't want to take all areas. I want to just take areas that are really close, like 2 minutes from home. Or you can say, I don't want to do gutter cleaning. I'm only doing lawn mowing, or I'm only taking on hedge trimming, or whatever the case is. And that's one of the benefits of having a system where you can choose which parts you're turning on and off. For an independent,
I can turn one side of the street off and keep the other.
Yeah, well, so as an independent, it's like if your way of turning it off is to not have signage on your vehicle, then you're actually making yourself look less professional, which means the people that are going to come to you are not going to see you as professional. You're probably not going to get as good quality customers.
Yeah, maybe potentially. If they're doing good work and they're getting referrals through their own network, then they will definitely pick up similar clients. It's generally how it will work, right? So if you are doing slash and dashes, then they're going to refer you to their friends that want slash and dashes that see that job. But if you can manage, let's say you don't have the signage, if you manage to do a high end property, and you can be profitable doing both, right? You can make the same money doing either. Potentially, as you move into, premium services, then you might be able to charge a little bit more. But you can make same or similar money doing either. But if you are working at good properties and people are seeing that, it would help if you had a trailer signage or you were in uniform when you were there. But you will get referrals to their friends of similar nature.
Oh, definitely, right. But it's one of those things where you look at the complete picture. Now, if you'd seen my old work trailer that I swapped for a Thumpster,
yeah.
If I turned up in that with a half-broken ute and no uniform, and when I first hop out of the vehicle, the neighbours would be tempted to call the police and say, somebody's about to rob you. But I'd hop out with a uniform on and I'd look professional. I'd be lawn mowing, not stealing something. So I look professional even without the signage. But it's all a picture, isn't it? The complete picture looks much better if the signage is there. It presents you as more professional, and then regardless of what area you're in, you're setting that expectation for not just your customers, but also your future customers.
I agree, but maybe it's like the debater in me that wants to fight for the guy that's just got a trailer together or chucking a mower in the back of his AU Falcon or something. Like, we need to think of, we can use a fancy word like ROI, like return on investment, but we need to think about, where do we start? So my first Jim's mowing trailer, mate, it's not that flash. And I ran it for close to 2 years. And now I have what I would consider the best trailer in town. Now.
Yeah, okay.
But I had a good return on business. I purchased, my trailer was okay, right? It was painted, had the signage and stuff on it. But it was a little single axle. Got me by. It got me by. Good return on investment, allowed me to put money back into my business and get myself a good trailer a couple of years in. So there might not be someone out there that can afford to buy the $6,000 trailer, which I'm saying is an entry-level trailer. There might be someone who, that's an entry-level, mowing box trailer. There might be someone out there that just gets the cage trailer or the little box trailer with no sides on it and stuff and has to strap everything down, someone putting it in the back of a commie and going out there and doing it. So I agree that you do have to have, some consideration of professionality, having the signage and that. Agree that everyone should do that once they can afford to do that, was probably my caveat there.
Yeah, well, I guess as an independent, you can start with a hatchback. You don't even need a trailer. You're better off with a ute than a hatchback, realistically. But you can start with nothing as an independent. With gyms, I think the buy-in price is somewhere around $30,000. I know it's not universal, but that's roughly what people are looking at to join up with the gyms if they're starting a new franchise.
Hard to say. It could be a lot less. It could be a lot more, right? Depending on what they want to do. So I know a bit of a topic in our franchise or group chat this week has been around van setups, and they're getting together some photos and stuff to give to guys because I think in the cities, I've got a mate down in Wollongong that runs a Jim's Mow. I grew up with him, and he's got 3 vans on the road. And if he needs green waste, he'll bring out a trailer for the day or get a skip bin delivered. But the van setup is for him. So, are you going a van setup? You can go just a ute setup now with gyms.
Well, I'm a massive fan of the van. It's it really does give you a good alternative to towing a trailer. And within a van, a lot of people will chuck green waste bags inside the van. It might start to stink a bit, but it gives you an easy solution to get around town without towing a trailer, and large enough to be able, you go for a Mercedes Sprinter or a Ford with a high roof line. Those vans have a lot of space in them. You can put a decent sized ride on in them even. So you really can do a lot from a van without a trailer. And it's a great option for people that have got tight streets and limited parking.
Yeah, exactly. So my mate down in Wollongong, perfect for him. Tight streets, a lot of cul-de-sacs and things like that. Out where I'm located, you really want to be able to, like, you can get in with my thing's a road train, essentially, now that I'm driving around. I've got a 36-inch on the front, a 21-inch mailbox behind that, and then I can put a 54 in the back.
Yep, wow.
Yeah, large setup. A lot of the guys will go tippers as well. Mine's not a tipper. I couldn't justify the $4,000 for a tipper, but yeah, so it's not one size fits all. And yeah, the price you're talking about the price getting into gyms, it's going to vary from region to region, city to city, town to town, probably suburb to suburb sometimes, with just the entry price, based on, who your franchisor is, where you're located, what's the, what are you buying into and what are you getting for that money too? So it's going to vary.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think Dan was doing a promo for some regions for $30,000 buy-in or roughly thereabouts, and it was just an easy number for people to digest and go, well, that's everything you need. As long as you've already got a vehicle, that's everything you need.
Yeah, he definitely. So inside of gyms, there's a schedule as well. So each region will run their own schedule. What a schedule is so what your fees will be and what a lead fee costs you and things like that. And he really simplified it. So it was I'll talk back when I started. So back when I started, it was $25K to come in with the business. And so that was with trailer and equipment, the training, uniform, everything. And the schedule. So I would read the schedule, and back then it was $800 for fees per month, like a 800.00. Made it really easy, like you said, to digest and work that out. And it was $10 for a lead fee. So whenever I took a lead fee, I'd go, okay, my fees this month are $810 now. I take another lead and I go, it's $820. So it was really easy to work out what I needed to do to get a return on my business. So what he'd done, full credit to him. It changed the system a little bit, the way that he did that.
Yeah, looking at your story, Mitch, in terms of, we've covered a bit where you came from Mount Isa down to Dubbo and started as a gyms franchisee, but after a while you've bought in as a franchisor for your region. And a lot of people will understand this already, but the difference is there that you then become in charge of the franchisees of your region, right? And that means you're
I definitely wouldn't say I'm in charge. I'd say now that there's a bunch of franchisees out there that are in charge of me, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, that puts you in a position where you're looking after that region rather than just mowing grass. And that means that your value is going to be in supporting the franchisees, doing regular touch with them, checking to see that they've got what they need, helping them find solutions to problems, reminding them when they don't get a 5-star review.
Yeah, so let's try and just touch point on you. Like, everyone wants to know the systems, right? That's the question. That's the topic that we're on. So systems within the business. Jim will set the minimum standard. So for a franchisor, and he'll set the minimum standard right across the board for everyone. And the minimum standard it's very low, to be honest. So when you're saying that I would talk to franchisees, I have to contact them in their first 8 weeks, at least weekly. I say to them, because we've had a few come on, I'll say to them, if you haven't called me 6 times on your first day, then something's probably wrong. So make sure that you are calling me. These are the minimum standards. So once a week. And we take notes on that conversation and able to put it into an application that we have on our phone. That would be the minimum for the first 8 weeks, and thereafter it's once a month.
Yeah, okay.
Now, once a month is enough for some people. Some people who've gone past their 8 weeks, they still want to be called weekly. But they can also call me, contact me at any point in time. And this is not part of the system, but it's part of what I have to do now, is that I need to set where my priorities are. So family first, right? But franchisees now have to come in front of my regular customers. So even yesterday, I know you're not a franchisee, Gary, but you called me when I was at one of my regular customers. And for me, if someone's calling me, they generally have a problem or an issue or something they want to solve now. Yeah. And if I don't answer the phone now, then they can sit alone with that problem or issue for probably, 4, 5, 6 hours. But until I get back to them, they may solve the problem on their own. But generally, if they can get a hold of it, if I can be available to them and have my priorities right, family, franchisee, and family tends to sometimes not win out, right? Like we might be out for dinner or something like that, and we'll take a call. I generally say to people that I'm available 5 a.m. to about 9 p.m. 7 days a week. And I've got one franchisee that will call me religiously on every Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. And I'm okay with that because that's when I'm publishing the newsletter to send out, the weekly newsletter to send out to the guys. And that's when he has time away. Like he has the ability to call me and have a conversation then. So I'm comfortable with that flexibility. So yeah, the minimum once a month or once a week for that first 8 days. So you were just asking about the touch point. I thought I better highlight the system there that Jim has the minimum standard in place. But it's only a minimum standard. You can, as a franchisor, I can do whatever I want with that as long as I'm meeting the minimum standard.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of things you're responsible for as a franchisor, but that support that you provide the franchisees is one of the critical roles that you're doing, right?
Yeah, I would think so. A lot of the time, so like Rick Simmons is a great franchisee. I called Rick yesterday, and it was just for a general chat. I'm like, I haven't spoken to him in like a week and a half. I know that he's got a new stand-on mower. I'm going to call him and ask him sort of how that stand-on mower is going. But we've had that relationship since before I was a franchisor, where we would call each other and speak for a long period of time. And I would, he might have solved more problems for me than I've solved for him. You might think I got all the answers, right? So, but let's think I'm 2.5 years into business and 6 months into being a franchisor. We do get answers from each other and from the group. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So apart from your role, your customer service role being your customers are the franchisees, what are some of the other things that you become responsible for as a franchisor?
Yeah, we look after the marketing fund as well. Part of that fee, so we use the 800, which is what I said the fees were, right? So part of that 800 goes towards the marketing fund. And at the moment, it's about to be audited. So third-party audit on that to make sure that we're, spending the money the way that it should be spent. And we use that marketing fund. I've got a marketing company that'll use that, and we typically use it across Google and Facebook or Google and Meta. Yeah, so that's something we manage as well. So obviously I have to look at supply and demand, what areas are needing work at that point in time and turning on and off and, things like that.
Yeah, okay. So the other factor that would come up for me looking at what you're doing and, thinking about our phone call yesterday, the franchisors are responsible not just for a percentage of the franchisees, but you're responsible for a region. So often, like the local region for me in gyms would be Newcastle and Central Coast. Whereas your region of franchisees that you look after is quite vast.
Oh, massive. So if you're leaving Penrith, when you get up to about Wentworth Falls, I believe it is, just go west. So we don't necessarily have a franchisee in Broken Hill. However, believe it or not, we've got the demand. We could definitely have a franchisee in Broken Hill. We don't advertise there, right? So it's just people searching Jim's Mowing or finding us on Google or Facebook or something like that and looking for a service. We could support someone out there, but we've got franchisees in Bathurst, Orange, Dubbo, Narromine. We could, I'll spruik myself here, try and get myself a bit of airtime. We definitely need someone in Mudgee, Parks, Forbes, Gunnedah, Narrabri, Moree and Broken Hill. That's all unserviced work that I see come through this.
I've got a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sortscape, at sortscape.com/lawnstars. Job management built specifically for lawn mowing and garden maintenance. If you're still running your business off a paper diary or a basic calendar, Sortscape gives you the stuff they can't. Drag and drop scheduling, route optimization, automatic customer text and email reminders, plus job timers, so you can track time on site and cut the after hours paperwork. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars. It also keeps your crew organised with customer history, notes and photos right in the app, so you're not relying on memory or pretty sure we did that last time. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars.
We've covered quite a lot of topics. I'm just wondering whether there's anything in particular you want to touch on, or do we go through some of those systems that Jim's has in place that people don't get elsewhere? Because I know we've touched on some of them, but there's so many things that Jim's just does that you may not even think about as systems. And then, you know, if you're independent, you got to work these things out. You might do them like pulling your pants on, but if you don't think about it, you might go, oh, that's just what we do.
Yeah, like you said yesterday when we were chatting, you were listening to the Jim's Diggers interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was talking about pay for work guarantee on there. And I listened to it as well. So it sparked my interest as well, because how do you do pay for work guarantee at Jim's Diggers? He was saying the average job's $500. Is he paying people to do a $500 job? And no, he's not. He's paying them to market and build services in their area. In my contracts, and I don't know if it's the same for every franchisor, but in my contracts it says that we'll pay you a certain amount for mowing a lawn, and you can do that up to the value of $2,500 per week if you let's say if you earn $2,000 in your first week, you can go out and do lawn mowing services to the value of $500. Each service being at the value of $65. So we don't want to make it too entertaining, right? But they're going to go out there and do 65 free. You know, they're going to focus more on the free services than they are on their local area marketing and things like that. I think it's a reasonable price, and it makes paid jobs look a little bit better. But it is there as an assistance for them to grow their business. But listening to, I think, is it Paul? I think it might be Paul. Listening to Paul, it sparked my interest. He said that he was paying people to do Facebook posts and stuff. So I actually have a really interesting franchisee that's going to start, a great guy, Banjo, down in Tathra. And he'll probably listen to this too. Okay. So he's going to start in late February, March. And I'm going to trial it with him, that I'm going to do pay for work guarantee for him to do some of that stuff that Paul had spoken about. I want to see how it goes. Yeah. So it's not part of our system, right, doing that. But I do have, like I said, it's the minimum standard from Jim. And if I want to go above and beyond that, then that's something that I can do. So I'm going to trial that with, I haven't spoken to Banjo about it. So if he hears it here first, I'm going to try doing that with him, because I really want, you know, I met his partner and his kid and stuff. So, you know, I had a really good connection with him. You know, I really want him to do well in this venture. So for me, if I can do something like that, which is a little bit additional, a little bit above and beyond, and use the system that's in place to pay for work, but adjust it and broaden the things that we allow him to do, I think that's going to be beneficial. So I know you want to talk more about systems. So there's a little bit on pay for work, but I'm picking up, like the podcast is a system, right? So I'm picking up information from the podcast as well. And I know that franchisees, not just prospective, right? So we put it out there to try and get prospective franchisees to join gyms. That would be what I would think the main tool of the podcast is. You'd have to talk to Joel and ask him whether that is the main reason that we do it, whether it's like a funnel to bring people into the business. But I find even me and other franchisees that I speak to, they listen to it to actually get information. Where your podcast, I guess, is mainly about getting information to people. So I've listened to another Jim's podcast, picked up something that another franchisor is doing, and then I can apply it to my business.
Look, I think that's really good. And there's a bunch of topics we could dive down when you talk about that. So in terms of whether you're utilising in a remote region like that, opportunities to grow the leads, because that's more important than anything else when you're putting a new franchisee out there, is to make sure that there's leads coming in, and he's essentially becoming part of your marketing system as well as the person that's going to be doing the jobs.
Yeah, I think we've got plenty of unserviced work already coming in down there without any advertising. But for me, I guess it's more of an experiment that can't hurt, right? So an experiment that can't hurt, and it's beneficial to the franchisee, so why not give it a go? And it's only something that I thought of 2 days ago, so you're the first person I've spoken to about it. But I think that if it works well, then why wouldn't I do it for everyone?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And I think that there may be areas where you've got that many unserviced leads that you don't want to do that, but in that particular area, that's a great resource to pull on.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Like you said, we're regional. There's one other franchisee down there in Bega, but his books are generally most of the time closed. So there is that unserviced work coming in. He'll be able to come pick that up, keep the clients within Jim's mowing, keep them within our network for us. And if he needs to, I'll be offering the social media or local area marketing things for him as a benefit to get his feet on the ground as well and get him in his business and doing something for it. So he feels like he's, you may not be busy on day one, right? Like, do you get a lead on day one or not? You hear of franchisees getting 20 leads on day one, you hear of franchisees getting none. Let's put like a safety net there that if he doesn't get a lead, there's other things he can do within his business on Monday when he starts until that lead comes in that will grow his business for the future. So we spoke a fair bit about Christianity yesterday. And I'm not someone who's Christian, but it was built from probably Jim being a Christian and his ethoses within the business. So I found when I started to do more for others than I expected in return, that's when my business actually started to grow. And it's probably what gives me the opportunity to be a franchisor as well. And I think there was other values that we touched on yesterday in our conversation, but you can see them trickle down through the business. And I said to you, from that interview, the Jim Stigger interview, Paul mentioned that Sharon Connor was one of his mentors. And Dan Cahill asked me to reach out to Sharon and said, book in a time to talk to her. She'll give you a lot of value in being a franchisor. And so I booked in a Zoom meeting with her, and she took out the time. She spent I think we might have gone just over an hour on a Zoom meeting. And we're talking a very successful person that probably, is very, not time rich. I would say that she's very, very busy. She took an hour out of her day to talk to a new franchisor that she's never met, that's not in the same division. And I was telling you yesterday, I can't put my finger on why someone would do that. And you and I got into talking about the faith within the business. And I said to you, and I probably shouldn't say it on a podcast, right? But I didn't, fine tooth comb through my franchisor contract. I looked across my franchisee one when I signed up, read through it, made sure that the business was right for me. But after being in the system for 2 years, and someone handed me a contract and said, would you be a franchisor? And I was purchasing Dan Cahill's region, and obviously the contract would then be with Jim's group, Jim Penman. I went, well, I trust Dan, I trust Jim, and I know that they wouldn't be setting me up for failure. This thing would be geared for success. So as I read through the franchisor contract, and things might have come up, like my wife went through it with a fine-tooth comb, not me, and I went, look, the things in here, they're obviously in place for a reason. And it was just simply to have faith in the system and in Jim Penman and Dan Cahill that, they're not setting me up to fail.
The notion of trust and faith is something which hinges on Christianity in history, but it's also something which is intrinsically human. And also, if you have a faith in God, that's how God works. That's the basis by which God works. He extends an opportunity to us to trust him. And faith comes much like it does in your marriage when you see that in action. And so that's what you've seen within the Gyms network is these people have got my back. I can have faith. And whether that's a spiritual experience for you or whether that's just a human observation, science or evolution or whatever you might apply there, it's a case of going, well, this has definitely within the Gyms network, and because Jim himself is a Christian, you can see that connection to the faith that is spiritual, but it's also for you, it's a real tangible thing where you go, these guys have got my back.
Yeah, so I think
if I said to you that it changed for me when I decided that I wanted to do more for others than I would get in return. So I started helping franchisees, and they probably couldn't work out why I was calling them and chatting to them and, you know, offering my advice to guys that had just started out and they're in another town. And I couldn't put my finger on why I was doing it as well. And it may start with the gym's ethos talk. That's the first thing you hear when you go into gyms mowing. But if it's trickling down from the top, you know, from national through division down to the franchisors and down to the franchisees, some of it will get picked up by people along the way. And maybe that's why Sharon picked up the phone and booked a meeting with me and had an hour-long Zoom, that potentially she also knows that the more that she does for others, the more that she will get in return, but without expecting it as well. And, you know, if you say faith in the system, then, you know, I believe that there would be more me and Sharon's out there in the system as well. There's plenty of franchisors that have reached out and given me advice and help along the way as well. Like I said, it's a village to raise that child, and there's plenty of people in there. John Wilds is a particular one that you might see on social media, and he's been fantastic for me. You know, he gives me a call. I would say semi-regularly, but I would say the call comes when I need it too. So maybe things are aligning a little bit. He gave me a call the other week at a point when I needed to have a call from someone, and John Wilds called me out of the blue and spoke to me for 25 minutes. So there are people within that system, and I think if the head of the snake is preaching these things, then, you know, the body will follow.
Yeah, and, you know, this is what I do with my podcast as well. I'm not in the gym system, but I want to make money out of my podcast, yes, but my ethos is not about making money in the podcast. My ethos is about demonstrating with my own experience and with your experience and every other person I interview that there's a opportunity in our industry. If you pay attention to the things you learn from my podcast, you're going to end up finding the systems and the practices that will help you to run a successful business. And yeah, I'm not sitting here saying everybody needs to hand me money, or I need more sponsors, I need to make lots of money out of the sponsors. You know, that'd be great. But it's like, no, the reason I get up in the morning and say I want to find another interview, or I do a trip to Ellie to meet up with you and the franchisees that you brought down there as well, it's because they're real people, real need. You know, they want to do something in life where they need some guidance. You and I are both in an opportunity now where we can help those people to get it right and have successful businesses. And for me, it's a case of going, you know what, the success in your business is really up to you and how big you want it to be. Do you want to be a person who's on the tools cutting grass all day, or do you want to be a person who's managing a team of 20, 30, 40, 50 people? You choose what your business looks like, and it's entirely feasible. The work's available. The industry's a great industry to be in.
It is. You must have been on a high after talking to me down at LLEE. So I know that you're helping people start out in the industry and stuff, but to hear it from someone that, you know, I knew you for 2 years prior to Ellie when I met you, but you didn't know me. Yeah. You didn't know that I was listening. No. And you know, that helped. I get instant gratification, right, as a franchisor, because I can talk to a franchisee today and them tell me, you know, I spoke to one just before we're on the call, and she said to me, like, you know, thanks, mate. I said that I was coming on this podcast, and she said, I'm so proud of you, Mitch. And like, I get that instant gratification. But for you, you had to wait 2 years to hear it from me that your podcast helped build my business. But you must get a good feeling from doing that.
Well, and look, I haven't said this on my podcast live, so, you know, another first for some of these things today. But I actually prayed about going down to that Ellie show and, you know, seeking God's guidance. It's the sort of thing which, for me, is going against the grain of what I do with my weekends. I spend time going to church, with worshipping with family, doing things that are valuable from a spiritual, religious experience, which is intrinsic in who I am. Right. And going along to a show like that is something I really want to do because I'm excited about it. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, it's pulling me in half in two different directions. And so I prayed about that for a long time. I talked to my wife about it.
You missed something in your faith on that weekend, is that correct? Did you have something that you were to do?
What was that? I'm trying to think what it was.
I'm not sure.
There was something there. I can't remember back.
Yeah, there was something that you had to do, and you were battling between doing that or coming down to Ellie. And I guess if you've prayed about it, are you saying that you got an answer on what to do, and it was to go down to Ellie?
So part of the answer was to go down there in faith, right? So I believe that what I'm doing with my podcast is helping people. And so I was like, all right, God, I'm not doing this for my own benefit. I'm doing it to help other people. So I'll just go there in faith that it's an opportunity to serve God. And then to hear from you and the other gyms guys that were with you. And then there's a young girl that's coming up on my next interview, Taylor. There was a bunch of other people that were there as well that approached me without me asking them. And they just said, hey, Garry, I'm glad you do your podcast. It has changed my life. And that was the other side of that faith. It's kind of like you having faith that your wife is faithful to you, right? You don't have faith in your wife because she's cheating on you. You have faith in your wife because she's faithful. I had faith to go down there, to trust the process and go, yep, I'm doing this for the right reasons. And then it's like God said back to me, hey, here's all these people who you changed their lives.
Yeah, yep. Sent Mitch to tell you how good you were.
Well, it's nice to have the positive feedback, but for me it was much more important to know that it was actually not just a feel-good experience. It was actually like, yeah, I'm doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, that's right. No, what you did was worthwhile, and it was a library for me, right? So when I started, I think you've been going for about 5 or 6 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, about 5.
About 5 years. So I started 2.5 years ago. So there was a 2.5 year library of podcasts that I could go back and listen to. So, I felt like when I started, and you need a friend in business, right? I have a franchisor and other franchisees in the area, but you need a friendly voice in business, and your voice as well as some of the other podcasters. But I definitely connected more with yours. Depending on who you are as a person, I'm a little bit touchy-feely. So your podcast definitely, for whatever means, I was, attracted to your one. If you're a bit boisterous, you might go listen to BJ or something. Or if you're a really analytical type person, you might listen to Luke. And I think I told you that down at the podcast and down at Ellie. And so for me, I had 2.5 years of your data to listen back through, and you're a really big part of my business, because you imagine how many consumable hours that is. And I've probably listened to it in the space of about 3 weeks, 2.5 years worth of listening to business owners open up. And I can even remember one of them that really stuck with me. I can't remember anything from it. It was just because it was so relevant to my area, because I'm in Dubbo. It was someone in Mudgee. You interviewed someone in Mudgee.
In Mudgee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's close to town for me. So I just remember really connecting because they were in a regional area as well.
Yeah, so that interview in Mudgee, I actually travelled to Mudgee and interviewed him in person, and that was Dave. He was a fantastic guy, and, one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Mudgee was because he'd reached out to me several times, and I was like, awesome, I want to actually meet you face-to-face. I'll come out there, stay at an Airbnb, I'll bring my wife and my daughter out, and then I sat down and interviewed him at his home. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I can't remember the interview or the specifics from it. It's just because you were interviewing, I think at the time, or your early stuff was interviewing cowboys and professionals and everyone in between and stuff. And for you to go out and do something regional, I was like, that's a voice. That's a voice for me.
Yeah, well, maybe I need to do a trip out to Dubbo and come out and meet you and the guys out there.
There's some good guys out here. So obviously my interview went live of Deshant today. And I plan on interviewing, so Deshant, who was down at Ellie, the Maori that you would have met him down there. Yep. And
yes.
So he's doing really well. So I interviewed him. It's sort of 6 months into business for him. And we've called out Heath Nash. So I'm going to interview Heath Nash next for the Jim's podcast. But, we've got a bunch of great guys. Like Mark Jones would be great to interview. He's grown a business really, really good. I spoke to him this morning. If you wanted to do a group interview of gyms, that'd be cool. Line up an interview.
Yeah, well, I don't even need to do an interview. I'd just be happy to come out there and meet them all.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I can definitely arrange that. So, look, we'll be looking at having a face-to-face meeting in March, probably towards the end of March. So you're more than welcome to come to that.
Well, let's keep on talking about that. We need to wrap this interview up, but I want to say thank you so much for coming in, stroking my ego. But no, it's been we've touched on a lot of topics that have been really good and hopefully helpful for people listening.
Yeah, hopefully I haven't said anything that I shouldn't have, and hopefully there's a bit of information there for not only Jim's Mowing guys but the independent as well, because I know there used to be there was a barrier a gap between indies and Jim's Mowing. Particularly when I started, there was a lot of talk about it, but I don't see that anymore. Yeah.
No, not at all. I think that it still exists, but it's not to the same extent. And there's certainly the community has grown stronger, not weaker.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
If you're out there tackling strata sites, commercial grounds, retirement villages, or those tough summer acres, a full commercial mower makes all the difference. That's why more commercial contractors are switching to Right Standers, the original stand-on mower, available in Australia through Cox dealers nationwide. Built tough for our conditions, the legendary AeroCore deck delivers a flawless, even cut every time. Quick manoeuvrability in tight spots, compact design for easier trailer loading, Kawasaki or Briggs engines, hydro gear drives, and a serious commercial durability. Stand instead of sit for less fatigue, better visibility, quicker jobs, and more profit in the bank. From the Standard B for great value to the X or ZK for next level performance, everyone is raving about the upgrade. Head to rightmowersaustralia.com.au or your local dealer today. Be sure to mention Aussie Lawn Stars. Right Mowers get the job done faster, cleaner and easier. Your back and your business will thank you.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.